Finnn writes, "Dear AMC, I've just discovered the show. It's grand. My question is, with the increasing popularity and money that large blockbuster films like Guardians of the Galaxy does it affect studios' confidence in deciding to make niche films, especially ones that may require larger budgets, thereby missing out on new young directors and having to rely on the few films with established directors like Wes Anderson that are only released every few years? Any thoughts?"
I don't think this is an issue because studios aren't very keen on providing big budgets for niche films. They just aren't, and it doesn't matter if you're a new director or up-and-coming director or even a seasoned director. I always talk about this movie, Lincoln. Steven Spielberg, one of the, most well-known filmmakers in cinema history, and then you got Daniel Day-Lewis, one of the most award-winning actors, about a president that's beloved and well-known, and they barely got that movie made. Spielberg talks about how close it ended up being like an HBO TV movie instead of a theatrical release. And so if someone of his caliber with that cast and that name and all that stuff barely can get the budget together to make it, I just don't see this being like an issue of a young filmmaker versus a veteran. I think more the path of Duncan Jones is more the likely path, where you start off with a small movie like Moon, which he killed it, and he did Source Code, which is a little bigger budget, and then they finally gave him Warcraft, which is a huge movie. So I think that's kind of more the path to take if you're an up-and-coming filmmaker, because you don't need it. Yeah, you don't need it. You don't need a big budget to show that you're talented.
Look at Gareth Edwards. I mean, he did Monsters on like a shoestring, and now he's just did Godzilla, and didn't he do Godzilla?
Yeah, he did Godzilla, and that was his next movie after Monsters.
Well, all the really good directors do that too. I mean, even Tarantino started with Reservoir Dogs and all those movies with the smaller budgets and building it back up. And look at I mentioned Matthew Vaughn on the show all the time too, with Layer Cake and all those movies. They're smaller budgets and you build yourself up. And a guy that I thought got thrown into it too quick was Gavin Hood. Gavin Hood did a movie called Satsi, which is beautiful, and it's a movie that's if you haven't seen, it's a foreign film. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. But it's small. I mean, it's what got him on the map. But then they just threw him into the big budget movies, and then I think the studio execs kind of bullied him a little bit. That's the problem sometimes. Is that when a smaller director, like look at what Nolan did. Nolan was able to build himself up through Memento and these other movies, and then when he got himself into position of power to get Batman, then when that movie hit, then he put himself in the position of power. When a director is able to do that, that's when they have the power. When they just jump from a good movie to a small movie to the big budget movie, studios can still kind of punch them around a little bit.
Because they have no cachet.
Correct.
I keep thinking of Doug Liman also, who started small. Swingers was like one of his first movies, and he kind of slowly built, into something more. And I think it's, it's also a question of studios they have investors and they have people that they have to answer to. And so they're taking fewer and fewer risks. And it's a great question because it also opens up the dialogue of what about the type of movie? Like Guardians of the Galaxy is, it's a franchisable movie. It's part of a big franchise already. It's superheroes. And I think, the dramas that used to be mainstays at the box office aren't anymore. Now they're saved for a certain time of year and only certain directors can do them. And otherwise it's indies. And then if you look at the indie community and the indie film circuit, most people start doing a short. Like they'll do a short and they'll enter it into a festival. And then like Lynn Shelton, for example, I think she started with a short and then she did a feature. Lake Bell started with a short, then she did a feature, and she already had entry into the industry being an actress and a successful one. So it's kind of interesting. There's so many different paths now. There's so many different ways to get to notoriety or success, really, not notoriety. So I don't know. It's a good question. You could have a whole show talking about just this topic. So.
Even the dramas, though, it's not like they're throwing big money at those dramas.
Well, that's what it is. Because look at something like we talked about Marvel all day yesterday, obviously, and another reason Marvel's able to become this machine is because for each movie that they do, they spend the right amount of money marketing each one too, and make events like yesterday and put the amount of marketing. Even DC has enough money in all their properties to be able to put the money to market the Batman v Superman, all these movies. With a movie like a drama or something like that, you have one campaign for this particular movie. It's not a franchise, so there's no. money for that particular genre that's going to be put into it. There's a set amount that they're going to promote it, and you don't have this kind of mega money that these franchises have built.
And there's a very limited time frame in which they can make money, whereas with a franchise, they're also banking on the success of the films previously because they already have a reputation.
Right.
So people are going to go see Guardians of the Galaxy 2 because they loved 1 and came out in droves to see it.
And they saw 1 because they trusted so much in the Marvel brand already.
Exactly.
And Marvel, to their credit, they take calculated risks. I mean, when John Favreau did Iron Man, he hadn't done a big movie like that. I think his movie before that was Elf.
Yeah, well, even Iron Man himself, even Downey.
Yeah.
Downey was a risk in general.
Yeah, because he wasn't, I mean, they thought he was a bit old and he...
Older, he had his problems in the past. You know, he wasn't really, he's still, I mean, you look at, even when he's not doing Iron Man movies, he's not a huge bankable star. So that was a big risk. You're right, they take huge risks.
Yeah, James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy before that, what did he do, Super, I think?
Slither.
He did Slither and Super.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're not exactly, you know, and Joss Whedon. You know, he did have one theatrical movie,
and he
Serenity.
was beloved. So they listen. They not only just listen to fans, because that can be dangerous. That's all you do. But they listen to fans. They listen to people who, when the directors and actors come in and hear their pitches about the material itself, not just, oh, here's crunch some numbers. Audiences seem to like this guy. Put him in there. Yeah. They don't do that. They really do their
homework.
There's other franchises that are doing that as well too, and that's why we're talking about this.
Hey everyone, if you like this video, click that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's free and helps you stay up to date with all the latest movie news, as well as our daily AMC movie talk show. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with all of our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.